In the early years of the 1st century, around 30 AD, a question arose that would change the course of human history forever. How could a single man, born in the remote province of Judea, spark a movement that centuries later would become the largest religion in the world? If you stay with me until the end of this segment, I will help answer that question. The story begins with Jesus of Nazareth, a Jewish teacher and preacher whose life, though brief, left an indelible mark on the Roman world. Historical records outside the Christian tradition, including writings by the Jewish historian Josephus and Roman historian Tacitus, confirm the existence of Jesus and his crucifixion under the Roman prefect Pontius Pilate. These sources corroborate the accounts found in the New Testament Gospels, providing a foundation for understanding the origins of Christianity as a verifiable historical movement. Jesus traveled throughout Galilee and Judea, teaching about the kingdom of God, performing acts of compassion, and challenging established religious authorities. His parables and sermons emphasized love, forgiveness, and a radical call to justice. While the majority of his followers were ordinary people, fishermen, farmers, and laborers, his teachings resonated across social classes. However, his growing influence alarmed the Jewish religious authorities and Roman officials, ultimately leading to his arrest and execution by crucifixion around 30 to 33 AD. The crucifixion, rather than extinguishing the movement, became the defining moment of early Christian identity. The apostles, Jesus' closest disciples, proclaimed his resurrection, spreading the belief that he had conquered death and offered eternal life to all who believed. This message, radical and countercultural, became the foundation of early Christian theology and practice. Among these apostles, Paul of Tarsus stands out as one of the most influential figures in early Christian expansion. Originally known as Saul, he was a Pharisee and a persecutor of Christians. His dramatic conversion on the road to Damascus transformed him into Paul, a missionary dedicated to spreading Jesus' teachings beyond Judea. Paul's journeys took him across the Roman Empire, from Syria to Asia Minor, Greece, and eventually Rome itself. His letters or epistles to various Christian communities form a significant portion of the New Testament and provide historical insight into the challenges and successes of early Christian communities. Early Christians faced immense obstacles. They were often persecuted by Roman authorities who viewed their refusal to worship the emperor and participate in traditional religious rituals as a threat to social order. Despite these dangers, Christian communities flourished in urban centers like Antioch, Corinth, and Alexandria, where ideas could travel quickly along trade routes. The appeal of Christianity lay in its inclusive message, offering hope and salvation to the poor, slaves, and women, groups often marginalized in Roman society. The creation of the New Testament Gospels during this period further solidified Christian belief and practice. Written between 50 AD and 100 AD, the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John provided narrative accounts of Jesus' life, teachings, and resurrection. These texts were circulated among early communities, serving both as spiritual guides and as unifying documents that preserve the apostolic tradition. Other writings, including the letters of Paul, Peter, James, and John, addressed practical concerns, theological questions, and ethical guidance, helping early Christians navigate life under Roman rule. Christianity's expansion during these decades was not only spiritual, but also geographic. Missionaries and converts traveled to regions such as North Africa, including Carthage and Alexandria, where Hellenistic culture and trade facilitated the spread of ideas. Communities also took root in Italy, particularly in Rome, where the Christian population grew despite intermittent persecution. The religion's emphasis on communal worship, ethical living, and mutual support helped create resilient networks that could survive social and political pressures. One remarkable feature of this early expansion was the adaptability of Christianity. In each new location, communities maintained core beliefs while integrating aspects of local culture. This flexibility enabled Christianity to resonate across diverse linguistic, ethnic, and social groups. For example, Greek-speaking Jews and Gentiles could interpret Christian teachings within their own philosophical and cultural frameworks, allowing the religion to cross ethnic and social boundaries that would have otherwise hindered its growth. Early Christians also emphasized written and oral transmission of teachings. The apostles instructed new converts, established house churches, and mentored leaders who would continue the missionary work. Baptism, communal meals, prayer, and the observance of sacred texts became central practices, providing structure to these nascent communities. The sense of shared identity and purpose, even in the face of persecution, strengthened the movement and ensured its survival. By the end of the 1st century, Christianity had moved from a small Jewish sect to a trans-regional religious movement. Despite its humble beginnings, the faith had established a presence in major Roman cities and had attracted followers across social classes. The letters of Paul and the Gospels circulated widely, ensuring that the teachings of Jesus reached communities separated by hundreds of miles. The faith's resilience and adaptability laid the groundwork for further expansion in the centuries to come. In summary, the origins of Christianity demonstrate how a single figure and his devoted followers could transform the religious landscape of the ancient world. Through the leadership of apostles like Peter and Paul, the courage of early believers, and the strategic spread of teachings and texts, Christianity established the foundation of a global faith. The question we asked at the beginning is now partially answered. Jesus' impact endured because his followers carried a message that transcended geography, social class, and political barriers, creating a movement capable of changing history itself. In the early 4th century, around 301 AD, a question emerged that would redefine the relationship between faith and political power. How could a religion that began as a persecuted minority transform into the official faith of entire kingdoms and empires? If you watch closely, by the end of this segment, you will understand how Christianity moved from the margins to the center of world power. The transformation began with rulers who saw in Christianity not only spiritual truth, but also a means to unify and strengthen their realms. One of the earliest examples is King Tiridates III of Armenia, who, according to historical records, converted to Christianity and declared it the state religion of Armenia around 301 AD. This decision made Armenia the first nation in history to officially adopt Christianity, predating even the Roman Empire. The influence of the Armenian Church helped consolidate political power while establishing institutions that preserved Christian teachings for centuries. In Africa, King Azana of the Aksumite Kingdom, which corresponds to modern-day Ethiopia, embraced Christianity in the 4th century. Under his rule, the Aksumite state adopted Christian institutions, built churches, and aligned its laws with Christian principles. These conversions highlight a significant trend. As rulers adopted Christianity, they provided protection and legitimacy to the faith, allowing it to flourish in ways that were impossible during earlier periods of persecution. The pivotal moment in the history of Christianity, however, came with the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great. In 312 AD, Constantine reportedly experienced a vision before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. He saw a cross of light in the sky accompanied by the message that in this sign, he would conquer. Motivated by this vision, Constantine adopted Christianity as a guiding principle for his reign. Following his victory, he enacted policies that transformed Christianity's status within the Roman Empire. In 313 AD, Constantine, together with his co-emperor Licinius, issued the Edict of Milan. This decree granted religious tolerance to Christians, ending centuries of state-sanctioned persecution. Christians could now worship openly, own property, and organize communities without fear of imperial reprisal. The Edict of Milan marked a turning point, allowing Christianity to grow not only in numbers but also in cultural and political influence. Constantine's support extended beyond tolerance. He provided funding for churches, appointed Christian officials, and convened the First Ecumenical Council in Nicaea in 325 AD. The Council of Nicaea addressed theological disputes, most notably the nature of Christ, and established the Nicene Creed as a standard of belief. This council was historic because it codified Christian doctrine, unifying communities across the empire and creating a framework that would endure for centuries. The rise of Christianity during this period also included the promotion of Christian moral and social values within governance. Laws increasingly reflected principles derived from Christian ethics, addressing issues such as the treatment of slaves, care for the poor, and prohibitions against practices considered pagan or immoral. This alignment of political power and religious authority strengthened both the state and the church, creating a model in which faith and governance were intertwined. The transformation of Christianity into a state religion was not limited to the Roman Empire. Across Europe, North Africa, and the Near East, rulers who converted to Christianity often followed Constantine's example, blending political authority with religious legitimacy. Bishops and church leaders gained influence in courts, advising on policy and mediating conflicts. In this way, Christianity shaped not only individual belief, but also the very structure of society. By the end of the 4th century, the influence of Christianity was evident in daily life. Christian festivals, such as Easter and Christmas, became widely celebrated. Churches, some monumental in scale, served as centers of worship, education, and community life. Clergy became respected authorities, guiding spiritual practice and moral conduct. This period also saw the production of Christian literature, including histories, theological treatises, and hagiographies of saints, which helped educate new converts and preserve religious knowledge. The global significance of this transformation cannot be overstated. A religion that had once been a marginalized sect now shaped the policies of emperors, kings, and rulers. Christianity's moral framework influenced laws, education, and social norms. Its networks of communities facilitated communication and cultural exchange across vast regions of Europe, Asia Minor, and Africa. The foundations laid during this period would later support missionary activity, theological development, and the further spread of Christianity worldwide. It is important to note that this growth was not uniform or without conflict. Some regions resisted conversion, and debates over doctrine created divisions within the church itself. The process of adopting Christianity as a state religion involved negotiation, adaptation, and sometimes coercion. Nevertheless, the overall trajectory was clear. Christianity moved from persecution to prominence, from private faith to public power. By understanding this period, we see the mechanisms by which Christianity gained legitimacy, codified its beliefs, and influenced imperial politics. Kings like Tiridates III and Azana, alongside emperors like Constantine, illustrate how political conversion could propel a religious movement to unprecedented heights. The legacy of these developments continued to shape societies for centuries, establishing Christianity as a central force in European and African history. In conclusion, the 4th century demonstrates a remarkable transformation. A persecuted faith became an instrument of political unity and social reform. The Edict of Milan, the Council of Nicaea, and the conversion of rulers created a world in which Christianity was no longer a private belief, but a public institution with global implications. By the end of this century, the question we asked at the beginning is answered. Christianity rose to prominence because it offered spiritual guidance, social cohesion, and political legitimacy, creating a foundation for centuries of influence and expansion. In the early 5th century, around 400 AD, a question arose that would shape the spiritual landscape of Europe and beyond. How could Christianity, having established itself as the state religion of empires, continue to grow among peoples who had never encountered it? If you remain with me until the end of this segment, you will discover how missionaries, saints, and kings transformed entire regions and cultures through faith. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD, Europe entered a period of political fragmentation and social upheaval. Despite this instability, Christianity remained a unifying force. Bishops, abbots, and monks became central figures in communities, offering guidance, education, and care for the poor. Monasticism, inspired by figures such as Saint Benedict of Nursia, spread across the continent, emphasizing prayer, discipline, and service. Monasteries became centers of learning, preserving classical texts, copying biblical manuscripts, and training future clergy who would carry the faith to distant lands. Missionary work was essential to the expansion of Christianity during this period. One of the most famous examples is St. Patrick, who arrived in Ireland in the 5th century to convert the Irish people. Historical accounts indicate that Patrick combined religious instruction with local cultural understanding, using familiar symbols and stories to communicate Christian teachings. He established churches, ordained local clergy, and created networks of Christian communities that endured for centuries. Today, St. Patrick is remembered not only as a spiritual leader, but also as a cultural bridge who connected Ireland to the wider Christian world. In England, Augustine of Canterbury, sent by Pope Gregory the Great in 597 AD, played a similar role. Augustine baptized kings, established churches, and organized dioceses, laying the foundation for the English Church. His work demonstrates how missionary activity often relied on collaboration with local rulers, whose conversion could accelerate the acceptance of Christianity among their subjects. By securing royal support, missionaries ensured that the faith would be protected, respected, and integrated into society. The spread of Christianity was not confined to Europe. By the late 13th century, missionaries such as John of Montecrivino traveled as far as China. Serving as Archbishop of Conbalik, the capital of the Yuan dynasty, Montecrivino worked to establish churches, translate Christian texts into local languages, and foster communities of believers. His journeys highlight the global vision of the medieval church and its commitment to spreading the faith across continents. During this period, Christianity also faced internal and external challenges. The Great Schism of 1050 divided the Western Roman Catholic Church from the Eastern Orthodox Church, creating two major branches of Christianity that persist to this day. Despite this division, missionary activity continued, with both branches seeking to convert pagan populations in Northern and Eastern Europe. The Teutonic Knights, for example, carried out campaigns in the Baltic region, combining military force with religious instruction to integrate local communities into Christendom. Crusades, beginning in 1096, represent another facet of medieval Christian expansion. Initially intended to reclaim the Holy Land from Muslim control, the Crusades also facilitated cultural and religious exchanges between Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. While the Crusades were often marked by conflict and violence, they also contributed to the transmission of knowledge, trade, and ideas, strengthening the Christian presence in diverse regions. Christianity adapted to local cultures as it spread. In Scandinavia, missionaries incorporated elements of Norse tradition into Christian practice, easing the transition for new converts. In Slavic lands, the brothers Cyril and Methodius created the Glagolitic alphabet and translated biblical texts, enabling worship in the local language. These efforts demonstrate the flexibility and resilience of Christianity, allowing it to thrive in areas with distinct languages, customs, and belief systems. The medieval church also played a key role in education and literacy. Cathedral schools and universities emerged in cities such as Paris, Bologna, and Oxford, training clergy, scholars, and administrators. Christian teachings influenced philosophy, law, and science, intertwining faith with intellectual life. Monastic libraries preserved not only biblical manuscripts, but also classical works, ensuring that knowledge survived the political and social turbulence of the era. By the end of the 13th century, Christianity had transformed Europe from a patchwork of pagan tribes and fragmented states into a continent largely shaped by Christian culture, law, and governance. The combined efforts of missionaries, clergy, monarchs, and scholars created a religious network that connected distant communities and maintained unity despite political fragmentation. The spread of Christianity was not only a spiritual achievement, but also a cultural and social revolution, affecting art, architecture, language, and social norms. In summary, the period from 400 to 1300 AD illustrates the power of missionary work, monastic discipline, and strategic conversion in expanding Christianity across Europe and beyond. Figures such as St. Patrick, Augustine of Canterbury, John of Montecorvino, Cyril, and Methodius exemplify the dedication and ingenuity required to establish faith in new territories. Through adaptation, education, and collaboration with rulers, Christianity became deeply embedded in medieval society, preparing the foundation for its later global expansion during the Age of Discovery. The question we asked at the beginning is now partially answered. Christianity spread not only through force or decree, but through persistent engagement, cultural understanding, and the commitment of individuals who devoted their lives to teaching, guiding, and organizing communities. By the end of this era, the Church had created a structure capable of reaching far beyond Europe, setting the stage for centuries of global influence. In the early 15th century, around 1400 AD, a question arose that would determine the global reach of Christianity. How could a faith that had shaped Europe for centuries extend its influence across oceans, continents, and entirely new civilizations? If you follow this segment to the end, you will understand how Christianity became a truly global religion during the Age of Discovery. The Age of Exploration began with European powers seeking new trade routes, wealth, and knowledge. Portugal and Spain led the way, sending explorers to Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Alongside merchants and conquistadors, missionaries traveled to spread the Christian faith, often under the guidance of papal directives. These missionaries were motivated not only by spiritual conviction, but also by the belief that Christian civilization could bring moral and social order to newly encountered lands. In Africa, the conversion of the Kingdom of Congo illustrates the early success of missionary efforts. In the late 15th century, King Zinga Nkuwu, later baptized as João I, welcomed Portuguese missionaries into his court. Churches were built, Christian education was promoted, and the Congo elite adopted European customs intertwined with Christian practice. This early engagement demonstrates how political leaders could facilitate the spread of Christianity by integrating it into governance, diplomacy, and social life. The Reconquista in Spain, completed in 1492, also had significant religious implications. Centuries of effort to reclaim Iberian territories from Muslim rule culminated in a Christian kingdom united under Ferdinand and Isabella. The consolidation of Spain as a Catholic state reinforced the link between political power and religious identity, setting a precedent for Christian influence in newly discovered territories. Spanish explorers carried this model to the Americas, where missions accompanied colonization efforts to convert indigenous peoples. Papal directives played a crucial role in guiding global missionary work. Papal bulls, such as Romanus Pontifex and Intercetera, authorized the evangelization of newly discovered lands and encouraged European rulers to protect and promote Christian faith among indigenous populations. Missionaries established churches, schools, and hospitals, blending religious instruction with education, healthcare, and community organization. The efforts of religious orders, such as the Franciscans, Dominicans, and Jesuits, were particularly influential in shaping local cultures and sustaining Christian communities in distant lands. In the Americas, explorers like Christopher Columbus and Hernan Cortes carried Christianity to indigenous civilizations. While colonization was often accompanied by violence and exploitation, missionaries sought to teach Christian doctrine, baptize converts, and provide moral guidance. Churches were constructed in key cities, and catechisms were translated into local languages. The establishment of Christian institutions laid the groundwork for the enduring presence of the faith in North, Central, and South America. In Asia, missionaries faced unique challenges. The Portuguese established trading posts in India, Malacca, and the Far East, and Catholic missionaries followed, aiming to convert local populations. Figures such as Francis Xavier, a Jesuit priest, traveled extensively through India, Japan, and Southeast Asia, preaching, teaching, and establishing Christian communities. His work demonstrates the adaptability of Christianity, as missionaries learned local languages, respected cultural norms, and used education, and social service to gain trust. By the end of the 15th century, the combination of exploration, colonization, and missionary activity had transformed Christianity from a regional religion into a global faith. Networks of churches, schools, and religious orders connected Europe, Africa, the Americas, and Asia, creating channels for cultural exchange, education, and spiritual guidance. Christianity's global reach was unprecedented, laying the foundation for its influence on world history in the centuries to come. The Age of Discovery also raised ethical and theological questions. Missionaries debated how to integrate Christian teaching with local traditions and how to respond to the exploitation of indigenous populations. These discussions shaped the development of Catholic and Protestant approaches to evangelization, influencing policies, theology, and practice for centuries. Despite challenges, the commitment to spreading Christianity remained strong, demonstrating the enduring power of faith combined with strategic planning and cultural engagement. In conclusion, the period from 1400 to the late 1500s highlights how Christianity expanded from a European religion into a global faith. Through the efforts of missionaries, explorers, and rulers, Christianity reached new continents and diverse peoples, leaving a lasting impact on culture, governance, education, and social norms. The conversion of the Congo king, the Reconquista in Spain, and missionary work in Asia and the Americas illustrate the dynamic interplay of religion, politics, and exploration. By the end of this era, Christianity had achieved a global presence, connecting humanity through shared belief, institutions, and networks of community. The question posed at the beginning of this segment is now answered. Christianity became a global religion because it combined spiritual conviction with adaptability, political engagement, and cultural integration. It carried not only religious teachings, but also education, healthcare, and community organization to new lands, ensuring its enduring influence across the world.